And the panel is set to take you through the big stories of the week. We had an eventful week full of surprises, big stories and usual stories. Looking at the floods in Kampala, that is a story we run every other year, and it tells of what city we live in and possibly the big work the managers of this city have at hand. And of course, we will talk about the divisions, the disagreements, and the chaos in the opposition forum for democratic change FDC, especially that this week, the Katonga faction engineered the coup. They suspended the leadership at Najana Nkumbi, and again, in the same week, the leadership at Najana Nkumbi also received and endorsed nominations from their leaders, including the President Patrick Oboya Muriat and the General Secretary Honorable Nana Mafabi. Of course, gearing up for the second National Delegates Conference, which is slated for the 6th of October. And finally, we'll also look at the debate that has been running on social media for now a week or so, looking at, sentiments around tribalism and nepotism, with the debate pointing out key positions in governments and MDAs where they think have been suspect to nepotism, and we'll be looking at whether this debate is actually relevant in Uganda's context. My name is Simapolo. Let me introduce the panel in the studios. Richard Baguma Tinkasimire, a communication expert. He is a resident panelist, and I'll ask him to speak to you before we kick off the show.
Thank you. As always, Apollo, you know, it is the Almighty that I thank first and recognize. The all-powerful, but the very gracious, very, very gracious. So, thank you for having us here, Apollo. I'm really looking forward to listening to Doctor. I haven't listened to Doctor before.
Okay.
I have the usual stubborn Haji on the other side. It's nice to be here, but of course our viewers. I really thank our viewers for being faithful and carrying us. Even when they carry the conversations, I like the conversations online after here. So this is, we thank them very much for being part of us.
I want to convey special greetings from your people in Rugota, Isinjiro.
Yes.
Mr. Mirisera and others said I must tell you that they are watching and they are happy about whatever you're doing.
Yeah, you see, when your parents proud of what you're doing, you really feel uplifted. So thank you for the good news.
Good. On the panel this morning, we've been joined by Dr. Wakabi Dominic. He is the Secretary for Health in the Forum for Democratic Change FDC. I think he was in Katonga, for the Extraordinary Delegates Conference, but he is also a NEC member in the Forum for Democratic Change FDC. Welcome to the dialogue, Doctor.
Thank you, Brother Apollo. I'm also privileged to be here to share with you some information. And largely, I do thank the SOT media for the relentless efforts you have put in place to make the population know. Information is power. And you have been at it in the social spectrum, political, religious.
Okay.
All the time I'm at it. I also feel comfortable being here with a communication expert. You know, we doctors are bad communicators. My brother here, so I shall follow suit and then.
Can you confess to the audience that you belong to the Katonga group that led the coup this week on the leadership of FDC?
Largely, for purposes of this discussion, I'd like to make it very clear that the FDC is one. And on that ground, delegates were invited from all over the country that belong to FDC. Actually, the Katonga issue is a media nomenclature that we shall do.
Okay, and on the panel, I, of course, I'm happy to have Becca Baterule back, senior journalist, and he works with the Uganda Radio Network. Only that he was a victim of an attack during that extraordinary delegates conference at Katonga.
Sorry. Good morning, listeners, wherever you are listening from. It's sorry, it's a pleasure to be here with Baguma. Only that you said his people. I think for me, a student of politics, we detest the word someone claiming that he has people, because it has been used and vulgarized to lower our people to, because where did you get them? No. So for us, we don't use those words that my people. You have no people. But it's always a pleasure to be here, especially, you know, leaving bed on a Saturday is a hard thing, but because we believe that by speaking to the people, we are making a contribution to this country. So we leave the bed and come to, you know, on a Saturday morning to speak to the people of Uganda, and I'm happy that I'm always happy to be here. Thank you.
Good. I think we'll deeply interrogate the circumstances that led to being a victim of circumstance. I mean, during that delegates conference. But quickly, as we look at the big stories, my attention has been drawn to a headline in the Monitor where Uganda sent 70 officials to attend the 78th United Nations General Assembly in New York. The session will run, actually has been running from 18th to 20, it will run up to 26, 8 days. And on the list, top of the list is the Vice President, who actually represented the President, the Prime Minister, Right Honorable Robert Nabanja, and 9 ministers. And I've talked about 70 officials attending the UN General Assembly. I looked at the list. It includes even permanent secretaries in ministries, personal assistants of ministers. Of course, they have to, of course, move with their permanent personal assistants, advisors. It's a long list. And I'll pick from you, Richard. What do you make of this story? Is it something that we should be concerned about, having a delegation of 70 officials attending the UN General Assembly?
First, I think that story was only prompted by some infighting. That is all. I think whoever was infighting with whoever, trying to cast whoever in bad light, that's all. I have been, for a couple of times, I don't know, I've been to the General Assembly, how many, 20 times or more? Yes, I only stopped when COVID started. I was in New York, you know, preparing to be at the General Assembly, but I didn't. And I have people from the UN Association, young people, 20-year-old, who are at the General Assembly. Those ones were not part of the list. So 70 in itself is an under-declaration. There are many more Ugandans than 70.
No, I'm talking
at
about
the General Assembly.
I'm talking about officials.
Yeah, I have been there previously.
Public money.
When we are going, for example, with the president, how many people go around the presidency? The advance team, how many are they? This was not the largest of the delegations we have had. And you see, what we should be talking about, in my view, is what do we gain? What do we gain in this one?
But the primary question behind.
But for the delegations of 70 countries carry this. You see, people are talking about 9 ministers. You need to see how many people come for delegations. How many sessions and meetings are, by the way, happen in the General Assembly? We have no idea. How many bilaterals happen? One of the things you do at the General Assembly, you see, because we are poor countries, This is why we talk about a ticket to New York. We are poor, I understand. So we look at this as something very big. So maybe in our poverty, yeah, that is big. But you see, the why people go to these meetings, first of all, you are targeting bilaterals.
Okay,
because all of you are there.
Those meetings are at the sidelines of...
for example, the other heads of state you are going to meet. Because if you are going to do a state visit to each of these states, it is going to be terribly expensive and logistically difficult. So you go meet. Imagine if our president is going to the US to meet the Secretary of State, and it is only that visit, the logistics can be very bothersome. So yes, in our poverty, this looks very big, okay, but the Ugandans at the UN General Assembly currently are probably more than 100. I was telling you, my own group, the young people, the university students I take for the youth meetings, the side youth meetings. They may not be on state money, but of course I don't generate the money from anywhere. It's from some taxpayer, not in Uganda. This one is paid by the Germans. And some of these government officials probably are also paid by whoever invites them. Because we get invited to speak at the different things. People who have causes want you to be there. So sometimes we are not traveling on government money. But that doesn't matter. I know in Uganda, first of all, we are poor. But also getting a visa to go to US is so...
It's hectic.
It's so hectic, but it's also such an important thing. I can tell you, when I was there now, I had 15 people asking me if I could help, because they know I was helping these young people to travel. If I can help their children go. They are there already for them working there. People call it cheyo. I don't find that term very useful. But they say, can you help my child? Come, I will give you $5,000. So there is also that how we see it, how we view it. It's what we should be asking is, what do delegations do? Do we actually know what delegations do? And what do we gain out of those? So when you ask me, why do I go to the UN General Assembly? Because I meet my financiers and bring some money to this country and assist these young people to go and get opportunities for mentorships, for scholarships, for placements, for internships, and so this is why I go. I may not go on government money, but it's some taxpayers' money somewhere that takes me.
All right, before I bring in a journalist, and we are talking about a story that ran on the front page. The Vice President, Her Excellency Jessica Lupo, she's the head of the delegation, that is the accreditation status. I can see on the list, Right Honorable Robin Nabanja, Prime Minister. She travels as an advisor. That is the accreditation status. Dr. Monica Museneros, Minister for Science and Technology. Amos Gorobi, State Minister for Finance. Victoria Businje, State Local Government Minister. Obiga Kania, State Urban Development Minister. Chris Mukisa, Executive Director, UBOS, and many others. And okay, let me see who I can pick here. Kasule Lumumba, General Duties Minister, OPM. Sam Cheptolis, Water and Environment Minister. General Sacheng, Health Minister. Jijo Dong, Foreign Affairs Minister, and many others, including Lucena Chove, Head of Public Service. Ambassador Donia Ebale, okay, that is the permanent representative to the UN. Beka Bate.
For example, Lucena Chove went to do what? They are discussing our hosting of non-aligned movement.
Okay.
And our session to the G77. You know, we are becoming chair for G77.
Yeah.
We have to host them here. Those were the meetings they were having.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult for people to understand this, I know.
Yes. Becca, what do you make of this story? Does it make or raise concerns in any way?
Thank you. I want to, what Baguma is saying is logical, if that were to be the reason why they were there. We've had cases where when they go to the UN, and where do we find them? They are in New York, shop, what is it called? This watching things, what is it called? Window shopping. They go on looking at how beautiful New York is. Many of them actually don't do any work related to the work for which the Baguma might think that they have gone for. That's the biggest problem. So the value for what is the value? Because we would be discussing. The UN has been there, is it 77 years? And of those, how many years have we been there? The 66 years of our independence. I mean, how old are we? 60 what? 63? All those years we've been there as a country. What is the benefit? So those are the things we should be looking at, because even next year, Baguma said that previously they have had even bigger delegations. But what is the value? That's what we would be looking at. What do we get when they come back home? Is there anything to show that this was the benefit of the trip that we undertook in New York? So some of these things, you'll see. I read Museveni's book, a collection of his speeches, What is Africa's Problem? And in there, it is a 2000 book, but he had said this much a little bit earlier. Says you find African leaders competing with the Gorbachevs of this world on who has the latest Gulf Stream. Yet they are leaving their leaders, their people back home with the feet that are Jega infested. That was our president. So even him, he knew for a fact that there was little benefit from these meetings. So, but leaders continue to go there, and the money they would spend, because when you in the 8 days they would spend there, minister, I think we spend on them every night. Because some are members of parliament. A member of parliament will spend 720 US dollars every night they spend outside. But a minister, I know for a fact that it could be higher than that. What would be the benefit? I mean, what would be the opportunity cost of them not going to these meetings? What would the money they would have spent there, what would it have done in actual changing of the lives of the people? Because even our president himself, he talks about it. These leaders who you will find at the UN speaking, making nice speeches, and at the end of the day, they are competing with the world leaders in making these statements. I watch international news. You rarely would see CNN, BBC, RTF, Sky News, all these international media broadcast for us anything from our African leaders. Because what they are saying there is not important in the progression of the world. So why do they keep on going there? Because this time I saw a speech from Iran, I saw a speech from Ukraine. I saw a speech, what is the Russian president saying? What is the Israeli president saying? Of course, this is colonialism. Because the global south, you don't have to say anything. You have to listen to the big boys speak. Of course, so then it tells you that you are of no consequence here. Therefore, if that is the people you are going to look at you from those lenses, that you are of no consequence, then why would you take 100 people to a conference where those ones whom you have gone to talk to don't consider you as important in the conversation, in the global conversation? So, like Baguma says, I think our biggest problem with this is we look at what would be the opportunity cost of someone traveling to New York, of spending 15 days in New York. What would be the benefit if he had not gone? What else would it have done? In Kampala, now there is no road in Kampala that is passable. All of them, even Kampala Road, you drive on it like you are driving in the Katajalmond, I don't know what they call the potato plantation. You drive like this on Kampala Road. All the others, wherever you pass, there is this road that crosses from Chivuye through Indeva. I think that is the place. When you go like this, the other person will not see you in the car. The other person will wait for you to come out. You go in a ditch like this, then you in Kampala. So you would ask, if we are going to spend 2 billion, the president the other day gave a directive to give 6 billion to KCC to fix roads. But if you have to spend 3 billion on the visit of these so important government officials, wouldn't 3 billion fix at least 3 roads in Kampala that are in a
so you don't see any benefit in attending these international conferences or events?
we haven't seen them because they would tell us, and sometimes because the biggest problem we have in this country is that leaders are not accountable to us. Even when they go, even when they have got something from there, they don't think that it is important to communicate that, you see this road you're having here, it was as a result of our trip to New York. So some of these things we never get to know because they are not accountable to us. But nonetheless, I think for the last time, you know why has our president stopped attending these things? I think for the last 3 years, it is just Alupo representing us. So why has he stopped attending these things? You would say he's an old man. A trip of 12 hours to New York would be very tiresome for him. But maybe he has also realized that there is nothing much from these visits. But having said that, we cannot exclude ourselves from the international conversation.
That's what I wanted to tell
Yes,
you.
having said that, we cannot exclude but can we balance between us being part of the international conversation, but also not in a country that is struggling to feed its children, not look like you are again as wasteful as we are.
I think even the writer, at the back of his or her mind, was looking at whether it can be possible to send a small delegation and get the benefit we expect from that particular event.
Yes, I think that is the balance we have to make. How do you still go there but not look like you are as wasteful as these figures, I mean these numbers are trying to portray? That is the balance we have to strike. So when if you are struggling to feed the children, you have struggled. I saw a billboard the other time that make sanitary pads free for the children. If you're struggling even to provide the basics to keep a girl child in school, so why would you spend 2 billion in a visit whose benefit it is hard for us to touch?
Okay. Thank you so much. And Dr. Wakabi, tell us what you think about is this wasteful expenditure, or there is a benefit attached to such an important international event?
Ideally, there is no single country that has lived the cocooning or cutting itself from the outside world that has ever developed. But also, we need to keep on making assessments, looking at how we are thriving economically and the benefit of international conventions over time. It is very true that yearly we send people to UN conventions. I would like to concur with my brother that what has been the assessment over time vis-a-vis the input, especially at such a time when the economy is bleeding, at such a time when the president himself came out and said that international travels should be limited. Not avoided, but limited. Last time he was even questioning Parliament to cut down its expenditure on
travel expenses.
I ideally see that what was at the back of the mind of the writer, he was weighing the population at minimum 70. But largely, as our communication experts put it right, that the number is far beyond that. And there is a duplication of those that have been sent. They sent parallel teams. Ideally, what a minister could do, you realize that again, a permanent secretary and even a deputy and other officials have been sent in the same line. So looking at our economic status, where our debt burden has gone far beyond our budget, where at the shoulders of every Ugandan has 1.5 million to foot to ensure that our debt is reduced, which we are supposed to pay over time. Having a population which is living under the poverty line that we cannot achieve anything. So I would have gone by the statement of the president, which he said one time that we should do frugality. We need to be frugal in whatever we do. If we see that really, even paying salaries for civil servants, we are running after money lenders.
We have to borrow.
We have to borrow. Paying civil servants. How do you decide to go and spend billions in an activity which is like a leisure park, Last time I had a friend who was going to the UN, and his assertion was that he was going for adventure. You know, when you go there, you mix. And there is even something funny he said. Actually, he was a honorable man, but he said that he has never interacted with a Mzungu lady. Can you imagine? So the mindset of a person going to such a convention, but at the back of his mind, as he largely said, that you'll find some of them in the market sold in supermarkets. So the return at the end of the day is not worth our input in such an economic situation. So I do believe that few individuals would have been sent to such a convention, in that we are not really cut out, we participate, but while balancing our economy.
Wow.
Last time I was, you know, I'm a dick. We are looking at how hospitals are faring in Uganda. About 90% of government hospitals don't have functioning scan.
90%.
An ultrasound scan, which is almost around 20 million, 30 million, a good one. So in 1 billion, you can service about 40 hospitals across the country, and you save lives. But now, you are sending out people who are going simply for a simple picnic outside against the economy. So I do believe the headline was quite touching. And our policymakers need to look into that as we compare our economy vis-a-vis our standard of living.
All right, thank you so much, our viewers. I don't know, Baguma, if Richard, if you have.
You see, I do
wait a minute before you come in.
Work.
Before you come in,
I do international work.
There's a comment. There's a comment here before you come in.
Okay.
And this person says this is the record for the biggest delegation to the United Nations Assembly, and he wonders. He's a media person. Why there was no even a single media person on this delegation? Maybe
also,
who can...
But also that's not true. You see, people are speaking from a point of
ignorance?
Inadequate information. Yeah. And there is something Bate said. I don't know, maybe for him he has seen an assessment. I have not seen an assessment. And these people have been saying, oh, we should assess. I think we need to have an assessment of input, output. I always ask people, by the way, do you know that when your Minister of Agriculture is going to the UN, it is because the African Agricultural whatever institute has a side event and they are the ones who have supported him. It's not even your government. Do you know the Minister for Water? Because these organizations want to demonstrate high-level advocacy. They want to demonstrate high-level buy-in. Some of your delegates are actually not even paid for by your government. It is important for World Vision to have the Prime Minister of Uganda in their side event at the UN. So they pay for the Prime Minister and her bodyguard and her personal assistant. You find the money does not even sometimes come from your government. So there is this also lack
but Richard,
there is also this lack of information, inadequate information sometimes.
You have also heard of stories where we have delegates who claim to be going out for international events, and they're out at, in picnics, and they're enjoying holidays.
But you see, look, when I go,
they are enjoying per diems.
When I go, for example, this trip is paid for by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Germany. Because they want us there. And when I go, I have 2 speaking engagements, just 2 only, at the side events of the youth.
Then you don't need to attend all other events.
But they have supported me for the entire period of the General Assembly. So I have 2 speaking engagements too. By the way, the whole thing doesn't even take the whole day, it is half day. But I'm supported for 8 days. So you want to be holed up in my hotel room for the 8 days? So while these arguments have validity, I am saying that sometimes they are not adequately informed.
All right. I think maybe you're right. It is because of one, and even Doctor is right, because of the economic situation, back home. That is why these discussions are, are coming up.
Actually, these leaders that what Baguma is saying, maybe for in a situation where we always live in permanent suspicion that you are misusing our resources, why don't you come out and tell us that, you see, I am in Germany, I am at the UN, at the calling of the German embassy, and it has actually paid for. Maybe the backlash will be less than it is when we, and maybe the biggest problem is that you are known for misusing our resources.
Okay.
That is the thing. So then tell us that, no, this time I'm not misusing your resources. Somebody else is meeting the cost.
No, I think for a fact, maybe as we go to another discussion, I'd like to present it clearly. I know in journalism you do even investigative journalism.
Yeah, true.
And it's your role also to inform the public how much Uganda's budget needs for such purposes of the UN Convention. You will be at liberty, especially if we meet next, to give us what they have spent on this.
Exactly.
Believe me, a lot of money has been spent. It's not just...
it's in billions. It must be in billions.
So that's the money we are talking about. If there are other organizations which call other people, if they call me as Dr. Aki for a purpose, that's not the issue we are talking about. But the money which is picked from our finances.
Exactly.
It's there and it's too much.
Thank you.
It is not too much. You see, what I'm debating is this assertion that it's too much. What measure are we using?
No, it is too much.
Because how much is too much?
Because we have starving kids.
No, but how much is it? For you to say it's too much. For what to return? I said I agree with this gentleman.
We have breeding health centers.
Without this assessment, we are being speculative.
All right, viewers, we need to move on.
Because in the next topic,
Doctor, we need to move on. And let's look at what happened in the week, during the week, both at Katonga and at the FDC headquarters in Najanankumbi. An extraordinary National Leaders Conference was convened. Initially, it was slated to be convened somewhere in Busabala, and later they shifted to Katonga road offices. And some of the resolutions were that the leadership at Najanankumbi are suspended for 6 months. But we know well that there was an interim injunction stopping that event. Two, the leadership at Najanankumbi are also organizing another National Leaders Conference on October 6th. Let me start with you, Doctor. What transpired first at Katonga is more largely described as a coup at the leadership in Najanankumbi.
I would like also to register my dissatisfaction at what the media normally brands in the political arena. The word coup, I last heard of it, I first heard of it when I was reading about Uganda's politics when Idi Amin actually took over from Obote.
1979.
1971.
Oh, 71.
Using military attempts. And that's when I heard of the word coup. The definition of coup is far detached from the reality of what's happening in FDC leadership. FDC as a party has got its members. And the members of FDC make the aggregate existence of FDC as an organization. Leaders at the top are simply servants, and they derive their authority from the leadership down.
Oh, yeah.
The highest policy-making organ of the party that has the highest powers is what we call the National Delegates Conference. And the National Delegates Conference is a composition of leaders from all the districts. We normally have a minimum of 7 members to 13, depending on the number of constituencies from each district. So those are the real owners of the party. And the hullabaloo we've been having in FDC over time has caused national attention and international attention. By the way, 2 weeks ago we had a meeting with the ambassadors of various countries, especially the Scandinavian countries. Everyone is concerned. FDC, which used to be the hope of Uganda after the mismanagement of Mr. Museveni. Now, with all of this confusion and fights, the chairperson of the party had to fulfill his mandate.
Ambassador Waswabirigwa.
That's provided for in the Constitution under Article 28. He is mandated to see that there is harmony. Whenever there are fights, it is his constitutional right to see that he prevails over such and puts in place mechanisms. Under the mechanisms of bringing about unity, would be having meetings and engagements. Where things had reached, there was a lot of polarization in that leaders couldn't meet. So the real owners of the party, who are the delegates across the country, had to be invited in an extraordinary meeting, which is provided for in the FDC Constitution, Article 23, clauses 4 and 5. So the chairperson did the same and invited. He gave us a notice, and on 19th, the delegates were supposed to meet in Nature's Green, Busabala. To which response the delegates did. Others arrived on 19th. And by morning, they were supposed to be at Nature's Beach. So FDC did what is required by law. The chairperson did what is required by law. You have talked about
Exactly. There was a court, an interim injunction.
An interim injunction. Well, you know, we are living in a state where all the organs of state are being misused. And for us who want clean politics to prevail, we prevail objectively. So that injunction itself was sanctioned by Honorable Nandala Mafabi and Power. How? They used a lawyer who has been swearing in illegal leaderships across the country.
No, but it was issued by court.
You get me right. So by doing so, they ensured that this lawyer establishes his personal assistants to put up a fake case against Nandala and Power. Nandala was not the convener of the delegates conference. By constitution, the convener of the delegates conference is the chairperson. The chairperson was an ex parte to the case. And in so doing, his meeting was not.
Let's talk about the outcome of the case.
Yes, yes.
Now, it is the interim injunction
issued
by court.
Yes.
Stopping or blocking the extraordinary national leaders conference
of Nandala or Power.
So
because they have theirs on 6th.
Doesn't that...
Our interpretation is that certainly the one of Nandala and Power, which was premised to take place on 6th October, it could be one that could be affected. Because the one of chairperson, he was not served, he was an expert to such. Therefore, we went ahead and we invited delegates. If at all, the Power faction and Nandala realized that it was an illegal activity, again, they wouldn't unleash the terror which my brother Bate suffered, where Gunus and the Kanyamas that has taken over the same activities of FDC to prevail in the country. So they prevailed over innocent Ugandans. Why to do that?
So you still insist that the extraordinary...
The resolutions are
Wait
binding.
a minute. Despite the interim injunction, the extraordinary, the event at Katonga was legal.
Legally binding, because it never floated any of the constitutions of FDC or any of the constitutions of Uganda. And we are waiting for the legal battles. If anybody says there was any illegal meeting, then we shall prevail over such with certainty. I have no doubt about that. Good enough, I have a good background of law. I'm a lawyer at the same time.
Even when court issued an interim injunction,
the punitive actions are different. It can never make a meeting a nullity or an illegality. So we shall discuss that in court and we shall prevail over.
Baker Bate, quickly before we go for
First
a break.
of all, sorry, Baker, did they slap you or kick you? The whole of you.
I think the story, he will bring out the story.
Before you're asking me a question?
Yes.
Okay.
What do you make of the event at Katonga first?
Let me first relay my personal story. Of course, we had already as journalists, there was already, I mean, news that there will be an extraordinary meeting of the FDC at Busabala. Obviously, you expect us to attend. So we went. I picked a friend of mine along the way in Masaja. I was driving a car. So at the town, in the town of Busabala, we met a group of about 30, 40, 50 young people making a ring. So they surrounded my car, trying to ask, the windows were up, so they tried to ask me things, so I wasn't hearing. I lowered the mirrors to hear them, what they're saying. But in the flash, they had already opened the car and removed everything I was carrying there, including a bag that had a laptop and things that we use to gather news. I jumped out of the car and
at the venue or along the road?
Almost, because
those could be criminal gangs.
The town, the Busabala Trading Center, is just a few meters away from Nature's Green Resort, where the meeting was supposed to take place. But police had already cordoned off the place, so there wasn't really much there. But the people are around, the journalists and everybody was around the center, the Busabala Trading Center. So they grabbed the bag. I tried to chase after them. I reached them. They had already shared the content. One went away with a laptop. The laptop, you know, I'm doing a PhD. All my PhD work was there. Before I went there, someone would ask, why would you go to a meeting like that? But you know, I work for Uganda Radio Network, and one of the things we do, we report news as it happens. And you can't do it on a phone because you have to have sound and you have to cut sound. So you really need a laptop. And for the last 10 years, I've covered riots, actual riots and stuff. Nothing like that has ever happened. So I wasn't under any illusion that.
So do you attach this criminal group to the event?
No, they were part of them. It is a group that was sent by Najana Nkumbi to go and
How sure are you? How sure are you?
Because the very people who beat us at Najana Nkumbi, when there was. You remember when they beat up journalists at Najana, we were the very people.
Yeah.
When the
one journalist lost a tooth, I think.
Yes. When there was the elders were presenting a report, I was there, and I saw there myself. The other side of the FDC, where there is a hall, sort of where they meet with many people. That's where they are holed up. We found the woman preparing for them porridge. On Monday, they were at court protecting Nandara. You get. So I am under no illusion. And number two, when they stole the laptop, one of them came to me and told me I can get it back. So he told me, you give us money. I paid. He said, how much? I asked. He said, you will pay me 300,000. So I paid 222. He brought back part of the things that were in the bag, the recorder, the external drive, and part of the charger. Because the charger, you remove the USB, so he brought back the USB, and the laptop wasn't brought back. I saw the boy who stole it jumped on the board and ran away. So, but he said, we know him. So he called him. This one I was speaking to said he's the commander. So the commander called, and then after I gave him 30,000, he brought back the other things. Then I paid him 170. He brought back, I mean, he said he's going to pick the other in an hour. He didn't come back up to this point. But police is being cooperative.
Very unfortunate.
So, and when I called, listen to this. But, when I called him and he was say, I am at Najana Nkumbi. I had him say, a friend of mine who works with Sapienza, his bag was also stolen. He had a recorder, he had books there, he had a phone and other things. The phone was taken, but the bag he got at Najana Nkumbi headquarters. So I am under no illusion because I know the boys who was in charge. And some of them have been arrested. I was at Katwe. Police at Katwe, the DPC David Kamjula is really being helpful. So he arrested 3 of them yesterday. All of them confirmed. Nandara paid them 50,000 for the boys. And the commanders 100,000. So I am under no illusion whatsoever who was.
But it's unfortunate. It's a very unfortunate event, and indeed it is sad. But how do you relate it to to the politics in FDC now?
How do I relate it? Because
in 3 minutes, because we are going for a
yes,
break.
The idea that Nandra Mafabi, who previously had Dr. Wakabi here as a colleague, who the people would be around, surrounding him would be the Dr. Wakabis of this world. Now the people are surrounding him are the goons, the thieves from Katwe, the chiefs from Mulago, the chiefs from wherever. Nandala Mafabi and the FDC, who previously would not allow police to step up to their headquarters, now when they are holding any activity, they are being surrounded by police. Nandala Mafabi, who previously would because in the FDC, one of the things that it has been priding in is to be being democratic. It has allowed the change of leadership. Now, yesterday, I think is the only one who was nominated. Single-handed, nobody was.
No, there is another one. There is,
who else?
There is Biamujisha, who was also nominated for
president.
president.
And for is there anybody who is challenging him?
Oh, no. Biamujisha is vying for presidency.
So I can tell you that FDC is full circle. When I hear Nandara trying to explain his issue, the issue they are raising is that you received money whose source we don't know. When they ask him, and we have been there, have been asking, when we ask him, you know what he says? But even University was getting money, wasn't explaining where he was getting from. He's not answering the actual reason why. Did you get money? He's not answering that. He's saying, but even University has never given us accountability. No. When that accountability, at that time we didn't raise the finger. So it is, we are not at history, we are looking at the present. So I think for now, for me, we are full circle. FDC has gone full circle. And by the way, let me say this. You talk about a court order.
An interim injunction.
An interim injunction, yeah, issued by the court. And I was told, by the way, that the judge who gave that interim order is a relative of Nanda. Very close relative.
That does
not those are very
now.
important issues. One of the reasons to ask for a person to recuse is the grant that is related to the person in the other side. So, but having said that, there is a court of appeal decision and also Supreme Court decision that Jimmy Akena is not the president of the UPC.
But he is.
It is there. But there is the police at Uganda. There is a police at Uganda House to ensure that Akena is still the president of the APC. The same police that is telling us was at Katonga to enforce the court order is the same police which is at UPC house to ensure that the court order, the court decision is not implemented. So these double standards you cannot tell me that in one side you have lost credibility if you choose which orders to implement. Therefore, it tells you that the actual person who is protecting Jimmy Akena is the very person protecting Nandala Mafabi, and indeed, God is great that we never knew that.
Police protects everyone. Police is...
No, but police is ensuring law and order. You get.
Protecting
so you cannot tell me that...
and property.
No, you cannot tell me. So who was threatening FDC property? So do you want to tell me that Nandala Mafabi and Patrick Kamuya Toboy love FDC more than the other members of the FDC?
We'll go for a break.
That message is a threat to FDC that you have to hire chiefs to ensure that it doesn't step there.
That testifies of the confusion in FDC, and we'll go for a break. When we return, we'll also be looking at what now happens or what will come next after the Katonga-led faction suspended the leadership at Najana Nkumbi, when actually the leadership at Najana Nkumbi is in the process of retaining leadership through an election. Let's go for a break. This is the dialogue. We'll return after a short while. Welcome from the break. This is the dialogue. My name is Sima Polo, and on the panel this morning, Richard Baguma Tinkasimire, a communication expert, is with us. We've been joined by Dr. Wakabi Dominic. He is the FDC Secretary for Health and a NEC member. And Becca Baterule is a senior journalist working with Uganda Radio Network, looking at the events that made headlines in the week, especially the chaos in FDC, while where two factions this week, of course, announced, one faction announced it had suspended the other leadership, and it now leaves everyone guessing what actually will happen next. The faction at Katonga, after suspending the president, Patrick Oboya Muriat, the Secretary General Nanda Mafabi, the Treasurer General, Honorable Geoffrey Kanya, and others, they also announced an interim leadership where Arias Lukwago, the Lord Mayor, is president, Harold Kaija is the Secretary General, and Mujuche Francis, the Treasurer General. Now, two parallel leaderships of the same party, FDC, and you wonder what actually happened next. Richard Baguma, what do you make of these happenings in FDC after the two your fellow panelists have talked about an injunction, but illegality? I don't know what.
No, you see, Apollo, I have resisted the temptation to frame the current goings on as legal.
As legal?
I have resisted that temptation. We are dealing with a political situation. So the legalities and illegalities notwithstanding at all, we are dealing with a political process. I told my friend Semujung Nanda, we appear on another show weekly together, that a couple of things. One, it was UPC, it was DP, it's FDC, next week is going to be an UP. As long as you have my president with the power he has.
Which president?
My president.
Tubhabru.
Yes, President Tubhabru. I don't know if you guys have another one. You will tell me. But as long as he's still in charge with the power he has, the capabilities he has, that is going to be the fate of political groupings. They will be infighting, they will be divided. Yeah, so I said to that. First of all, long ago on WBS, I used to appear again weekly with Lukwago. I told him, Lukwago, you see, you are such a political animal that the one thing you want to be is president of Uganda. And I wish I could find that recording and I show it to him. He said, he even said in Uganda, please don't bring me problems. Yeah, I said, because you see, every time you stand as a mayor, you go and say, I defeated Yoweri Museveni. So really for you, your politics is directed at that one gentleman. And and there is nothing illegal or criminal about it. You are entitled like any other Ugandan to gun for that office. So now he's closer to facing him on the ballot
events box. In FDC now brings him closer
to when you're acting president, you probably will be the flag
which
bearer.
Is also not bad.
No, not at all, absolutely. It's why not? So this division for me is a continuation of a process that has been happening. This going back and forth over legal matters, that for me doesn't really matter. We are dealing with the political situation. And so you deploy the means that are at your disposal to achieve your political objective the way you see. So if it is true indeed, and I'm saying if, that Bate's assertions are true, then Nandara's political objective, he sees maybe by mobilizing the groupings, which I think are criminal in nature, will probably deliver for him. After all, we have seen many people who commit crime fighting for power. When they get to power, they legalize all the actions. Whether it's a coup, whether it's a rebellion, whatever it is. So that's the first one. The second thing I think one would see happening is a realignment of forces towards 2026. That you will see the Katonga group, the FDC Katonga, going closer to work with you in NUP. And you see the FDC Najana Nkumbi going to work closer with NRA.
NRA, NRM.
You know my stand. You know my stand, yeah. And I would not be surprised if there were MOUs on both sides.
On both sides.
There is nothing new with having splits in political formations and aligning around presidential candidates and agendas every 5 years. We see this in Kenya every time. I don't find anything wrong. You see, you can come together for an objective. Along the way, you disagree. Sometimes on the objectives, your objectives get changed. Sometimes you agree on tactics. You disagree on tactics, and you separate. So for me, there is no tectonic happening. There is no earthquake.
So you even seem to predict that this is over. It's over between these two factions.
You just try to imagine how it is. This is a divorce. Yeah, this is a divorce. And so when you have a divorce, you face it and you move on. Now, there will be relatives, in-laws, children, all of those things. And you see how to handle it. There will be joint property and all of those, you will see how to handle them. But for me, that's what it is.
All right. Thank you so much for that observation. And Doctor, as we wind up, what is the fate of the FDC as a party, once a strong and vibrant opposition party? In your prediction, what do you think will happen after these two big events, one at Katonga and one at Najana Nkumbi, where the nominations were closed?
Thank you, Mr. Apollo and Mr. Baguma, Tinka Simile, and of course my brother Becca. Actually, Mr. Baguma has made a very good analysis, and actually I'm believing that you're a communication expert.
Becca, you clap for that.
He talks about realignment, that there is realignment ahead of 2026.
You know, it's very important also in our analysis always to be political habigers, where we see ahead, seeing through, other than seeing the events. What's happening in FDC, it's just the characteristic of the body politics that is in the country and what we are going ahead of 2026. Going by what President Museveni said in 2017-18, I don't remember the date, he was making a prediction that by 2021, no political organization would be existing.
Opposition.
And in so doing, a head of state who is nurturing democracy, who is even sponsoring people to go for UN conventions and all that, being at large and comfortable making a statement that opposition politics should not be in existence, yet we know the importance of opposition politics in any functioning democracy. It was a disaster. But much as he said it, I was so comfortable, I as Dr. Wakabi, because I knew we had people who were like iron bars, who wouldn't be moved, who wouldn't be beckoned, who would not be malleable in any way. I knew Engineer Mariat and Nandala and the team we were working with, at least I knew for FDC, it would not be gullible. It is unfortunate at the moment that our leaders, that we thought had any tensile strength in them, have become so gullible to an extent that the one who's aligning with the regime, as Mr. Bernard Baguma said, it's very true. They are aligning with the regime to make terror on the fellow members and innocent civilians.
Like Bate.
Even the Fourth Estate, Mr. Bate. We've been castigating Mr. Museveni with his politics, but now Nandala and Power and Group, they exonerate Mr. Museveni. And the way I see Mr. Museveni's politics, for him is, I think, more hygienic, more clean, compared to the type of leadership that Nandala and Power.
That is where people have reached.
No, not reaching. This analysis. If you can hire goons,
wait a minute. That President Museveni, whom you have fought for all these
more
years,
hygienic,
is better than Nandala and Power.
Extremely. Because if you could just get the military and give it to Nandala, You just imagine what he can do to
But
Ugandans.
you have worked with him for all these years, Mr.
Yes, and now
Dr. Wakabi.
his true colors are coming out, and we never knew we had such a person. You understand? And I hear that he has made intention is also to contest
for presidency in 2021.
So just imagine if you can hire 250 goons, pay them daily, keep them in Ajenankumbi to come out and met all the violence on unarmed civilians. Actually, even on your colleagues.
Okay.
Last time I was seeing the day when we had the National Council, many of our leaders were bruised, were brutalized, were arrested, were beaten beyond repair, and some of them actually up now they are lame. They don't move well, and they were arrested with their wounds. You could see those pictures. I remember you journalists. So if it's the same leadership,
so what next for FDC from these events?
So it's for Uganda to know that we are in a type of politics where some people cannot stand their ground. FDC is an ideology. Those who stand for the values and the reasons of FDC will stand by that. And those are the delegates you saw who went to Busabala, they were blocked. Actually, the next place which you didn't know was Gaba. We had another venue in Gaba. By the time delegates were moving to Gaba, it was also cut off. And Katonga was just a last resort. We are retreating, and after retreating, we said now, since we are the delegates and we are the people, we gazetted the place. FDC made the decisions, and those decisions are binding. Anything made by the delegates conference, the
suspension of Nandala and power are binding.
It's binding.
Really?
So we shall only wait to see what you have just started, what Mr. Becker said, that we have now Anna Kena at Uganda House and somebody, if that's the trend. But good enough Ugandans are sober.
You see it coming?
They read, of course I see it coming. All these powers and the money and the violence and the protection of the people who are violent by the state, it's a clear indication that Honorable Nandala is now in the arms of Mr. Museveni. But Ugandans who want change, as he clearly said, the communication expert, that he sees a realignment of FDC with force-seeking changes in Ugandans, including NUP and other parties. And it's a provision of our constitution that we shall always align, work together with parties, individuals, organized with similar objectives. So if NUP is among them, the Progressive Democratic Party, the Progressive UPC, and other organizations, even including other individuals, personalities who would want to join us, we are at liberty and we shall cooperate as we gear up towards 2026 or even before. It's just in the line. So if this will stand,
as a NEC member and an insider, do you rule out a possibility of forming another political organization?
It has not come to our table. I greatly believe this coming week, especially from Monday onwards, we shall be headed for legal dynamics. Legal battles will be underway. We wrote to...
Do you plan to claim the offices at Najanankumbi?
It's our office, it is FDC office.
Really?
It's FDC office, and once the Supreme Organ makes a decision, which is illegal, we shall reclaim it.
All right.
We didn't want to balance terror, but we also have the capacity of mobilizing ourselves to go and reclaim it. It will be the first.
How will you do it?
It will be the first.
How will you do it without police, without courts? Because even you trashed the interim injunction. Now how will you claim such?
By trashing the temporary injunction, it means that we shall go for it by defiance. It's our property.
With goons
and
also.
If you have a rightful claim, you have a rightful claim of your property, then the law doesn't stand against your face. So we shall mobilize and we shall reclaim.
Mobilize goons also?
No, mobilizing ourselves as leaders. For us, we don't deal with politics of buffoonery and hooliganism. But we leaders, we shall mobilize and go and reclaim.
Finally, but in one statement, what do you see coming after these two factions now face off, either in courts or on streets?
I think for me, the president, I hear him, the last time I heard him talk about politics, he said, NRM is for everybody. We now have UPC, we have now DP, now they have FDC. So I think Unless I don't know what the leaders are going to do to reclaim that property, but actually they can even displace them from Najana Nkombi, and still the electoral commission
I think
recognizes
those offices are not rented; they are party premise.
Property of the FDC.
So
I mean, it is even possible to displace the people who are holding out at Najana Nkombi, but still the government, because you see this government, once it creates its own opposition, it is the government, but it also determines who opposes it, you know. So it will tell you, now you will send papers to the commission and say, no, we don't know you. So all these things are possible, and because the
resolutions they made have to be must be sent to the electoral commission.
They have to, and you might find the electoral commission, and you know these things for a fact. If the state hand is involved, you don't expect them to cooperate with those ones whom they are already.
The electoral commission will outrightly reject.
Absolutely. Let me say this. I think for me, the only thing that is going to save, I was speaking to people in the FDC, and there are others who are sentimental to the FDC. People who saw FDC when it was nothing, and they have helped it to go to wherever it has been. People who, maybe you find a man like Amuriat never even contributed a penny to the buying of that headquarters.
I don't know.
No, I'm saying maybe. I'm not saying he didn't. So, but there are others who really have lost limbs, have lost brothers, have lost sisters, have lost everything of value to them because of their association with the FDC. Those ones believe they cannot simply just look on when a few, 2, 3 people are running away with something that has eaten up all their strength, all their property. So those ones are winning. But there is also another group that believes that if they want to run away with the FDC, it is just the shell. Let them go. Because now we have the people. The people, I am telling you, I saw at Amori at the FDC yesterday, I looked in the footage. There is nobody who would recognize in the people who are welcoming him. The people, maybe they actually, the people you saw in t-shirts, maybe they are actually Chifesi. He had procured from these areas, because now he gave them t-shirts. But you would not recognize anybody in the audience. There is a friend of mine who said that a sheikh told him that, you man, you do that, it was a bad thing that you stopped attending these functions, Mauredi, these last funerals, because now when we are speaking, you look in the audience and you fail to say anything, because the kind of words you would love to say, really looking at the audience, they would not take them. They are really down there. So you look at them and say, now what can I tell? One time a friend of mine invited me to a primary school. He owns a primary school. And I was short of words to tell them. I said, now what do I tell to children who are 5, 7, 10 years? They were, I was lost for words. So that is the kind of FDC now that is Nandara claiming that is owning. The kind of people I saw now seated in the audience, that is the kind of people who he has actually procured. So I think for me, FDC, if that doesn't happen, if the real leaders of the FDC don't take back their party, even if we are to go by the way with the so-called delegates, the new delegates they say they have, we ask, where did these elections take place? They would sit 5 people and they say, you are the chairman, you are the secretary, you are this. That is against the cardinal principle for which even the NRM would say about the FDC. All the things that there is, they would accuse the FDC, they would say one thing, FDC is democratic. It would allow process to percolate throughout the party. Now you have people who sit in a room like this and say, now Apollo, you are the chairman, he is the secretary, he is this and this. And then the people who they are passing off as the legitimate
the leaders. When
you are in politics is the real reason why parties exist, not to trade in all mivumba, or not to trade in vegetables, but to trade in politics, and politics is the people. So if you are in a party where you have chased away more than half of your members, so what are you going to be? Of what relevance are you then to the people of Uganda, and why should you be existing?
Finally, you also believe it is done.
No, and this is if the only thing that is going to save the FDC from being RIP is if Nandara Mafari and Patrick Amuya Toboy are no longer in leadership. That is the only thing. Unfortunately for the
You're
FDC,
talking about resignation?
they have to step down because they cannot absolutely continue to lead a party that is united. It is obvious. So if they actually claim that they love the FDC, like they are saying, sometimes even if you are not guilty, for your own good, if you love the organization for which you are working, you get. If you love it and you love its survival, there is no way you can keep in leadership when you have lost the trust of more than half of your members.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think the ultimate reason, the ultimate test for the FDC to survive, if the current holders of office just say for the good of the FDC, we are out. But other than that, FDC has taken the path that DP has taken the path that the UPC has taken, and that path, when you take it, you can't recover from it.
Okay, 1 second.
1 second.
One
yes.
second.
One.
I read this one.
Remember,
then you come in.
Okay.
Good. Mr. Tusime, thanks for the show. Just like DP, UPC, it's just a matter of time before Power and Mafabi hand over the party to NRM. Power and Mafabi are now shameless. Whatever those two guys are doing, it's only God who can save us. I don't know. He's Joel from Chirinya. And he says, I hope Uganda becomes one state party, just like China, so that we have time to think for the development of our nation, other than wasting time discussing political parties with their nonsense. I'm fed up of these political fights in my mother nation because these politicians care about themselves, nothing like us citizens. But I have a question today, he asks. Why is it that every case involving Honorable Mafabi, it's the same judge, Esther Nambayo, always handling these issues? Yet, she is a pure relative, not even Dariot, or Team Major General here in Chirinya, Bokassa. Thank you so much, Joel. Keep those messages coming in. We appreciate your observations. And all our viewers, it is time for you to send in your comments. Tell us what you think about these events.
No, just remember the comments of General Mugisha Muntu about Morris. He said, time will tell. Is it time? Is it time?
It could be time.
It could be time. The second thing, quickly, Apollo, is the Honorable Nandara Mafami and the Honorable Power are certainly not going to act like Becca would recommend. No, there is no benefit
to resign or step down.
In them behaving like that. So I think for me, the real opposition in Uganda are not this Dr. Wakabi. No, the real opposition in Uganda is the consistent 3.5 or so million Ugandans who vote opposition every election. Now, what the politicians should be doing, in my view, is to increase those numbers.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. And gentlemen, in the interest of time, we have to, of course, shift gears and move to the next topic. We will wait to see what happens between these two factions as they face off, because you said this next week it could be court battles, and then possibly will be going to claim your headquarters in Najanankumbi. But there is a very intriguing topic we have to you have one word?
I wanted to just make one comment that FDC as a party and its ideology was about bringing people together to fight for a common cause of good governance. Yeah. That's the sole purpose. Democratization of the country and giving good services to the people. So there are people who ideologically engineered towards that. And that's the population Mr. Atinka Simile is talking about. The real Ugandans are there. The real people are there. The real FDC are there. Much as the leaders can disappoint, these individuals will coalesce around a common denominator that has a common fight for the good of Ugandans. We shall not allow this underhand method of his president and my president of the country right now to kill all political parties. The fight and the quest to democratization of politics in Uganda, good governance and good services will be pursued at all costs. The two RDCs in Najanankumbi that are now seriously working for Mr. Museveni, it is good that the whole population has now realized. Okay. We shall coalesce around a common objective with other seeking Ugandans that want to change, and everything will
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wakabi. And this is Bone from Nasana. He says, thanks for the show. Why Nandaland Power why Nandaland Power? Those people just want to finish their work, which was sent to them. Okay, hopefully he thinks they are running an errand. Hi, time will tell. I am Aban from Bushenyi District. Thanks for the show. Thank you so much, Aban. Thank you so much. And we need to move to an intriguing topic, but I will be reading those comments as they come in. But I am sure you have a very limited time with us. Quickly. There is a debate on social media and in public circles there about tribalism and nepotism. Your friend Dr. Spire Sentongo, I think, put it to the fore. He's receiving several messages. He calls them exhibitions on X, which was initially Twitter, and a lot. You can feel the anguish of citizens around this particular topic, pointing out officials who are in certain ministries, certain positions, and their relatives. And my simple question is this topic relevant in Uganda's context?
No, I think it is extremely important. Because the section of the public, the section of Ugandans, the citizens believe that they have been excluded. In my work as a journalist, I am privileged that I have moved in the entire Uganda. The districts of Uganda I have not been to are the highland districts, but I have moved in the entire Uganda. And I know for a fact that the entire Uganda, the short change that this government has carried out is not limited to a particular group of people. It is everywhere for everyone to see. And but having said that, the tribalism, the nepotism is real. It is real. And how is it real? I was doing a research paper recently, and one of the things I was looking at how violence has sustained Yoweri Museveni as the president of Uganda. And I looked at a couple of writings by our president, and one of his consistent messages is sectarianism, is tribalism. He keeps on saying that, you see, you don't benefit anything from your tribe. Me, the Banyankore, what were they telling me? Nothing. They own cows, I own cows. You know, they sell milk, I sell milk. Nobody can buy anyone's milk. So for me, the people who are buying my milk are the Baganda. So therefore, I have nothing to do with these ones. There is nothing I benefit from that. Nice speeches. Unfortunately, we say the devil is in the detail. The devil is in the detail. When the president, if you just stop at reading what he writes, you would say, really, this man is the best that this country can ever have. But when his writings, his sayings, vis-a-vis his actions, different, speak a different story.
Are you insinuating that the president also has a hand in?
No, he's sectarian. He's nepotistic. Our president is. In the Observer newspaper, which I am associated with, one of the cases that were our former MD, JT, James Tumsime, and Semuju had in court for a long time, and it has actually never been dismissed, was that they accused this government of being sectarian. Because then, they were looking at the military, and the military, then, it had 5 generals. General Yoweri Museveni, General Salim Sare, General David Nyefonza, General Aronda Nyakairima, and General Tumine. All of them speaking the same language as the president. Not only that, but also come from the sub-ethnic group of the president. We have a government where the president's wife is a minister. His son is a presidential advisor. His brother is a presidential advisor. His son, not the one who marries his doctor, he's also a presidential advisor. I was looking at the list, he's paying 15 million. Yet other presidential advisors are the same status with him, like Senda, are being paid 2 million. He has a quadrillion of relatives running, his brother, his sister, Violet Kajumiri. is in the assistant, I mean deputy of Education Service Commission. His other son-in-law Edwin Karujire, he chairs the appointments board of Makerere University. One time Makerere produced a thing. You have the minister, the wife is the minister. You have got the brother. You have a son-in-law chairs the appointments board of Makerere University. It doesn't stop that. All the relatives have got active roles in the government.
Some responses have been, do these people qualify in positions they are?
They are the most qualified.
So they ask, these are not my statements, and these are responses usually, that now what's wrong with it? If
no,
they
there is everything wrong with it. There is everything wrong with it, because you see, in a country where you have got 52 different groups, it is unacceptable.
Aren't we getting to 56 now?
Whatever the thing is, it is unacceptable that even if, by the way, Janet Museveni is the most qualified person, why would she be a minister in her husband's government?
Okay.
So these are really real issues that must not be glossed over. And I've been at the president's place several times. Not
State House or Chitula, where?
No, at the residence at Nakasero. I mean at work, Entebbe. From the gate, you hear a language. In the toilet, I went there, I had a language. In the room where I was served it, I had a language. So I was asking this president, who is so much interested in Pan-Africanism, in having why is it that all the people around him, I had the people on the walkie-talkie, the people of the SFC on the walkie-talkie, speaking in the language of the president. So it means that everyone who is across the line of the walkie-talkie understands the language this one is speaking. So I know it is State House in Entebbe is not the president's home, it is the home of the Ugandans. So these are really important issues. So a president who detests nepotism, a president who detests there was a time when his, you know, Sam Kutesa, and he marries Jennifer Kutesa, was a relative of Janet Museveni. You see, their children marry. So you have Kutesa in the government, you have also, really, you have Jim all these issues, really, I think for me,
I wish you could stay and
let me just make this last point before I think these are pertinent issues that must be investigated. I mean, that must, and problem is, they brought a law that called unsectarianism. In the penal code, there is unsectarianism, a section on unsectarianism. Unfortunately for that thing, it doesn't capture the person who is carrying out the sectarianism. It talks about me, who is talking about it. So, because they knew for a fact that what they are doing, because you see the law for us who are in academia, we say, the law normally speaks for the dominant class. Nobody, every law you look at, it is brought for the dominant class. So the people who are carrying out sectarianism brought a law to protect themselves, so they will charge me for being sectarian, yet the people who are doing the actual sectarianism, they will not be touched. So I think this is an important conversation. Unfortunately, sometimes we feel ashamed of talking about it. They continue cheating us, and every time you talk about it, they say, you are being sectarian. You are being sectarian.
Even me, in introducing this debate,
yes, it is.
I risk.
You feel like it is a conversation that we shouldn't be having. But if we want to have a good Uganda, because you see, let me tell you, Apollo, the last thing, I was in South Sudan in 2013 and 2016 when ethnically motivated killings happen. I know when a section, because in South Sudan you have as many tribes as there are in Uganda, but the rest of the population still feel that the people who are in government, the Dinkas, have tried to take everything that ought to be for the country. So when the killings started, they were motivated by ethnic things. I mean, based on ethnic, because they believe, one section of the public believes that it has been excluded. So until we must have this conversation, because we don't, Museveni tells you, I am in charge, I am in charge. You see, even the one in Gabon was saying was in charge. So we shouldn't allow a situation where there might arise. We were here during the Buganda riots. There are sections of the where these riots happen, and people were being asked, hey, you're Gambo Mufaliso. They wouldn't say these words, and they were being attacked based on their fact that they couldn't say Namungona, they couldn't say Omufaliso. So
really, we have tested this and we wouldn't want to go back there. And how do we start? By having a candid
discussion.
conversation about it.
Richard Baguma.
Thank you. Because
you
you see, this one is not about communication.
Is this conversation?
This is about me.
All right.
This is not about communication. This is about me. I belong to the subgroup of the president. This is where I have a challenge with this conversation. What Baker has described, and I'm glad he's still here for a few minutes, he has described feminism.
Yeah.
The problem for me I have is that then people translate that and impose it on an entire tribe. And even leaders.
Generalization.
People who want to be national leaders. Even elites, people in academics. That cannot be a candid conversation. That you are talking about a family dominating things, but you say that family is a representation and benefits the tribe. I was coming on radio today, listening to radio, and somebody said, and the moderator didn't challenge him, that you see, in my region, southwest where I come from, that the stomach, they put for a stomach up to each household, and the balance, they put it to go to the kitchen. And the moderator didn't challenge. And so for me, this is where I have, there is no honesty, yes. There is no honesty, including the academics, including the people who aspire to be national leaders.
Do you agree that this conversation is necessary?
We are talking about chauvinism. That's what we are talking about. We are talking about chauvinism. That is what brought gender battles. That the men were predominating and violating women, and they were claiming it's their right, either cultural or religious or what. So that, for me, I want us to frame this conversation. Otherwise, if we keep inflaming for short-term political gain, you see people telling me about blood. It is as if for them they don't have blood in their veins. Who tells you that the bloodshed will be only on one side? In Sudan, what is happening? So for me, yes, we need to have a discussion on this point. We need to go beyond the discussion. We need to have affirmative corrective action. But as long as the discussion is that, you see, there is a one tribe they all have good houses, they are all okay. That is not true.
That is petty.
The national leaders and the academics know that is not true. But even when they join the dialogue, they also say the other.
Baguma, you see where I started from? I said I have a benefit of having moved across Uganda. And the problems I found in Bushenyi, the problem one time I was, before they tarmac that road in Isinjiro, it was, I found a trailer, I mean a lorry carrying matoke coming to Kampala, driving about 15 kilometers per hour. And it is going to Kampala. The road, as soon as you branch to Isinjiro like this, it is as bad as you would find a road anywhere in Uganda.
Absolutely.
And there is productivity coming from these places. You would go to a place like Isinjiro at around midday, at around 2, when people are still in the garden is working, and there is completely zero input in what they are doing. You get, so the government actually has cheated them more, as much as it has cheated everybody. You get, so and problem is sometimes people who talk about these things have never stretched out of their own districts.
Yes.
They believe that things are different elsewhere. But the problem is, you saw when this Minister of Information had an accident in his place. You saw the press, the hospital he was taken to.
Kambogu Hospital.
When you leave Lukunjiri like this, immediately you will find no tarmac road as soon as you have left Lukunjiri.
So there are a lot of misconceptions.
Absolutely, with what is happening. The person in Kanungu, you walk in Kanungu, you move in Kanungu, you move in places like Kabat. The bad roads you would find in Kanunga as bad as the one you would find in Kakumiro.
And for me, it is the dishonesty of the elite and the national leaders and the academics. Because it means if we also give you power, you will also be behaving like this one. Who is there?
Doctor, make it short, but now I can let you go.
Please, thank you.
If you feel... But if you can stay, it's good for us.
Thank you, Bwana Apollo. And I've heard the proposition from my colleagues about the same subject matter. However, I see that when this topic came up, what came to my mind is actually what Mr. Tinkasimile Baguma eventually said. I discovered you have put my colleague in a very precarious situation discussing about the same. And much as he would be having an objective statement about the same, he would be tied just because of biological reasons. It's very true that tribalism and nepotism is not just a mere talk or a mere issue of sentiments being made by either biased people, but it is a reality which systemically permeates in all walks of Ugandans. It is a natural phenomenon. Anybody in position will first of all think of blood first. World over. It's only in civilized societies where systems have been put in place, where institutions that check such abnormalities are in place. That's when such a temptation is dealt with. In my understanding of nepotism, I have here a definition. Tribalism, they almost interrelated, but nepotism is a practice among those with power or influence of favoring relatives, friends, or associates, especially by giving them jobs. When you look at the whole Uganda, how it is moving, it's either one who has somebody to connect. Even when I was at university, the talk on the streets of university, all of us have been there. People always say, but do you have any connection? The concept of merit is invalidated.
Secondary.
Is secondary. What is primary is connectionism. The biggest danger is that the beneficiaries of this nepotism, I would like to agree with Mr. Tinka Simire, does not benefit each and every tribesman of the said tribe that is practicing it, or the said tribes. You just find a segment of people that are the utter beneficiaries. For example, we have approximately 40 million Ugandans, can be above. But out of the 40 million Ugandans, you will discover that about 1% of a said ethnic group is from buoyantly enjoying all of the goodies of Ugandans. And per percentage, you may realize around 400,000 people or less. But because of that, the same tribe people, whenever they bump with the same group, like what Bata was saying, that when he was visiting his state house, that the language that was being spoken.
It's the same. If you go to the speaker's office, you will find a certain language.
So largely, because it's the president wielding the highest amount of power in the country, you discover that the whole thing descends into those that are around him. And when you go to the military, still, this is just a fact. You'll find that most of the top officers, they'll be from a given ethnicity. But that does not mean that even the 1 inch of that tribe are benefiting equally. That's where the danger comes. You remove it, for example, I've also moved across the country. I've gone to Isinjiro, I've gone to wherever, all those places. You find people who are in abject poverty.
Yeah, true.
Suffering. Of recent, there was a medical camp which was in western Uganda. But you could find thousands of people on the line seeking for medical care. What does that imply? Hospitals are not providing...
those raising these concerns should be mindful that it's only a handful.
It's a handful of people in key positions that maybe have helped also their relatives down there also to slightly be in a better position. In that when you have one who is heading a department, we will bring maybe a relative to be a sweeper. So a handful of people are benefiting, not exactly the entire tribe. So I greatly differ because I also have businesses. I employ people. And right now, most of the people that are using in my clinics, you realize that a higher percentage, they're from Western Uganda. But when they tell you their stories and all that, they are not well off, really. They are not.
That is the truth.
They are not. So it's only that there is a percentage which has taken all the resources of Ugandans.
Okay.
And that percentage, when you trace it, it is from one tribe or a related tribe. That's what makes Ugandans think. When you look at key officers, for example, in the police, move around Uganda. When you are free, actually, as an investigative journalist, you discover that most of the DPCs, 80% or 90%, will be from a given tribe. If not a DPC, then the deputy. You go to this was the same thing. You go to heads of departments across the country, the same thing. So that's what makes people think that every office you go to, whether these communication officers, you go to MTN, just find people who are there. Go to Airtel. So those people in key offices in revenue way make people think that the entire tribe downwards. And that thing can only be averted by putting in place systems which allow democratization of the country and change of power.
Are you saying nepotism is not as rife as it is it is perceived in I mean from these sentiments we see on social media and elsewhere?
At higher levels it could be rife, but the beneficiaries downwards, some people may fall victim when they are also not beneficiaries.
Good. Richard Baguma, you hinted on the need to find a solution to all this. What do you think can be done?
You see, for example, doctor has asserted, I don't know, that 80 to 90% of DPCs are from one tribe. Me, I need us to cross-check these things. And let me tell you why I want us to cross-check these things. There was an allegation about URA in Parliament, about the same claim. And it was being championed by somebody who is senior in the government now, very senior. At that time, she was the opposition, but in Parliament and speaking for a certain central region. Federal, blah, blah, blah. And they said, let's bring the names and the tribes of these people.
The facts.
That committee, when the list came, they abandoned that investigation. Because the people from the central region were more at that time, at URA. But Parliament had said, and it was all over the media. I said, how come the journalists did not follow this story to say, but madam, you told lies to the nation. These allegations you are making. It died. So some of these allegations, perceptions can be more powerful than reality.
Yeah, true.
We know. I tell people that they tell you that there's a problem there. People start walking back. No one actually investigates what the problem is. They say, there is a problem there with the... We all retreat. So I want us to investigate these things. That is part of the truth telling.
Yeah.
That is part of the truth establishment. Because I hear these statements thrown around. That you see, these pairs, they are all from. Sometimes that's not true. Let me tell you the other thing.
No. Before you say sometimes they are not true, let's look at briefly at an example that was raised by Bate, that in State House, even the language is.
But no, forget State House. You see, when you have a gorilla leader and you expect him to trust other people, I think you are being unrealistic to yourself. You are just using. I think you are being. You see, it's like people are telling me, why is Besigye supporting Mijuche, and why is it his brother? What was Mugumia, and the other one? What was his name? Whom do you want Dr. Besigye to trust in this system where even the closest of him, even now, are the ones selling him? Won't they give him poison?
Okay, let me read these comments.
There are also some realists.
Thanks for the show. I'm listening from Umbale. For FDC to be on the safe side, Mafabi and the party president should step out of FDC because they are acting as agents to the party, especially Mafabi. Thank you so much. His name is who? Okay, you didn't give us your name, but thank you so much for that contribution. And another one here, he says, good morning, moderator. This is Fred from Boyogerere Chireku. The two groups are long. Why, if they blame Mafabi, that is A, he says wrong. the two groups are wrong. Why, if they blame Mafabi, they say Mafabi is wrong? What about Besigye as a leader to solve the issues internally, if possible, because they have an elder? Thank you. We love you to see me. Fred is talking about why Besigye did not handle these matters internally, not bring them into the public as washing their dirty linen in public. And I think we have to wind up in just 2 or 3 minutes. Richard Baguma, you can conclude.
No, of course, Dr. Besigye is like President Museveni. I usually say they are seeds of the same plant, very closely. What can you say? Identical twins. If he's not into something, then he must be leading the something. Then otherwise, he must not succeed. That's their character. Those are the characters of strong leaders.
Finally, you as we wind up, you think what should be done to allay fears and concerns of the people who think that nepotism is eating up this country, and it may lead to bloodshed, as you said?
No, you see, one thing, what leads to discontent is it's not nepotistic. No. You see, I keep saying that the people who are looting this country are not doing so by tribe. Because you see, you don't do looting alone. It is a network of looters. And it doesn't matter what tribe you are. I was saying there is a certain tribe in this country which has the largest number of permanent secretaries and under secretaries. Those are the people who actually do looting. Those are the ones who are on procurement. No one talks about them. So because it is the political leadership that is visible.
You agree that this could be a time bomb?
No. I have always said that as long as you have chauvinism, as long as you have looting and this hemorrhage, it does not matter whether it is done by a mixture of tribes or whatever, or it will explode, because the problem is that the population is dissatisfied.
Good. Dr. Wakabi, your final comment.
My final comment, I would like to say, especially on this issue, that when a country allows continuous peaceful transfer of power, it always brings in new people in the cycle. For example, if we allege that Mr. Museveni is a Muhima, meaning all people around him largely come from that tribe. If it was to be that Kano Besigye at one time was the president, or he becomes the president, then people, his associates will also come. And largely, if we allow institutions to operate, it will mean that we get now people who think that when you come into leadership, you leave.
Okay.
If a Kyagulanyi now comes, so it helps us even believe that power is transferable.
Regular transfer of power would help solve this problem.
And it enables people to do things not with impunity.
Good.
Such that a country starts evolving and that talk of ethnicity will already stop. But when you have a leader at the epitome,
good.
But I would like to end by this issue of when Besigye is brought in this perspective that he has not helped. Besigye, it's true FDC was coalesced around, all parties coalesced around charismatic leaders. Besigye being too much charismatic, FDC was formed around that, including Museveni. And all parties just warred over, they are like that at the initial stages. So Besigye almost became the systemic pump, the center of pump of FDC. But when this issue came, the controversy, they first had internal talks.
So internal talks failed to solve the problem.
Time, Nandala
That's how they came
wanted to flex. And finally, even a delegates conference
my time is running out.
Internal mechanism.
Good morning, Mr. Presenter. No country in the world that has developed because of democracy. Uganda needs a transformative dictator that fix what has failed many since independence. James Kashaya from Tugura Research and Development. Thank you so much. Kaziba Moses is saying FDC to survive, selling it to NUP should retain Nandala and Amuriat. The only people who cannot betray the president are the ones you find in the State House. Every 5 years, we transfer power. Thank you so much, Kaziba Moses. Our time is up. I have to thank all the panelists in the studios, Dr. Wakabi Dominic, Richard Baguma Kitinga Simile, and Becca Baterude. We must catch up again next Saturday. That is the dialogue. Good afternoon and a good week ahead.
Soul Television, Femunyo.